The Curse of the First Vampire. In the darkest recesses of history, there lies a tale that has been whispered through the ages. A legend of blood, darkness, and eternal hunger. It is the story of the first vampire, the progenitor of a race of immortal beings who have haunted the nightmares of humanity for centuries. This is the tale of Alexei, the scholar who sought knowledge and power, and who instead found a curse that would forever change the course of history. Alexei was born in a time of great upheaval when the old ways were giving way to the new, and the world was on the brink of a great change. He was a child of privilege, born to a wealthy family in a great city of learning and culture. From a young age, Alexei was drawn to the mysteries of the world, to the secrets that lay hidden in ancient tomes and forgotten ruins. As he grew, Alexei's hunger for knowledge only deepened. He studied with the greatest scholars of his time, learning the secrets of science, mathematics, and philosophy. But even as he delved deeper into the mysteries of the natural world, Alexei found himself drawn to the occult, to the whispered tales of magic and dark rituals. Alexei's family disapproved of his obsession, fearing that he was straying too far from the path of righteousness. But Alexei was consumed by his quest for knowledge, and he would not be deterred. He spent his days locked away in his study, poring over ancient manuscripts and forbidden texts, searching for the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. It was during one of these long nights of study that Alexei first encountered the legend of the vampire. He had heard whispers of these creatures before, of course tales of undead monsters who fed on the blood of the living. But as he read the ancient accounts, Alexei began to see the vampire in a new light. According to the texts, vampires were not mere monsters, but beings of great power and knowledge. They were immortal, able to heal from even the most grievous wounds, and possessed of supernatural strength and speed. And most intriguingly of all, they held the secret to eternal life. Alexei became obsessed with the idea of the vampire, with the possibility of achieving immortality through the dark arts. He scoured the world for more information, seeking out the most obscure and forbidden texts. And at last, he found what he was looking for, a ritual that promised to transform a mortal man into a being of eternal life and power. The ritual was complex and dangerous, requiring rare ingredients and precise incantations. But Alexei was undaunted. He gathered the necessary components: the blood of a virgin, the heart of a black cat, the venom of a serpent, and set about preparing for the dark rite. On the night of the full moon, Alexei secluded himself in his study, lighting candles and incense, and began to chant the ancient words. As he spoke, he felt a strange energy building in the room, a palpable sense of power and dread. Alexei continued to chant, his voice rising in pitch and intensity, until at last, he felt a searing pain in his chest. It was as if his very soul was being ripped from his body, torn asunder by the dark forces he had invoked. But even as he screamed in agony, Alexei did not falter. He pushed through the pain, driven by his desire for knowledge and power, until at last, the ritual was complete. As the final words left his lips, Alexei felt a rush of energy coursing through his body. His skin grew pale and cold, and his eyes began to glow with an otherworldly light. He could feel the power of the vampire flowing through his veins, the strength and speed and immortality that he had so long desired. But with that power came a terrible hunger, a thirst for blood that could not be quenched. Alexei knew that he had been forever changed, transformed into a creature of the night, a being who must feed on the living to survive. At first, Alexei tried to resist the hunger, to cling to his humanity. He locked himself away in his study, refusing to leave, refusing to give in to the dark desires that now consumed him. But as the days turned into weeks, the thirst only grew stronger, until at last, he could resist no longer. One night, driven mad with hunger, Alexei ventured out into the city streets. He stalked the alleyways and dark corners, seeking out the lonely and the vulnerable, those who would not be missed. When he found his first victim, a young woman walking home alone from the market, Alexei was overcome with a frenzy of bloodlust. He lunged at her, sinking his fangs into her neck, and drank deeply of her life essence. As the woman's body grew cold and still in his arms, Alexei felt a rush of power and pleasure unlike anything he had ever known. The blood was sweet and intoxicating, filling him with a strength and vitality he had never before possessed. But even as he reveled in his newfound power, Alexei was filled with a deep sense of self-loathing and disgust. He had taken a life, had given in to the basest of impulses, and in doing so had damned himself to an eternity of darkness. Alexei fled back to his study, his mind reeling with the horror of what he had done. He knew that he could never go back to his old life, could never again walk among the living as one of them. He was a monster now, a creature of the night, doomed to feed on the blood of the innocent for all eternity. As the years turned into decades, Alexei learned to control his hunger, to feed without killing. He discovered that he could subsist on small amounts of blood, taken from willing donors or stolen from the sleeping. But even as he adapted to his new existence, Alexei could not shake the sense of isolation and loneliness that now consumed him. He was a creature apart, no longer human, but not quite a beast either. In his desperation, Alexei began to seek out others of his kind, other vampires who might understand his plight. He traveled the world, following whispered rumors and ancient legends, until at last he found them. They were a secretive and cautious lot. These other vampires, wary of outsiders and fiercely protective of their own kind. But Alexei was persistent, and in time, he was accepted into their ranks. He learned their ways and customs, the elaborate rituals and codes that governed their existence. He discovered that there were many different clans and factions among the vampires, each with their own unique powers and abilities. Some, like Alexei himself, were scholars and seekers of knowledge, using their immortality to delve deep into the mysteries of the universe. Others were warriors and conquerors, using their supernatural strength and speed to dominate the mortal world. But all were bound by a common curse, a shared thirst for blood that could never be fully quenched, and all were forced to live in the shadows, hiding their true nature from the prying eyes of humanity. Alexei found a measure of solace among his own kind, a sense of belonging that had eluded him in his mortal life. But even as he embraced his new existence, he could not shake the feeling that something was missing, that there was a deeper purpose to his immortality that he had yet to discover. As the centuries passed, Alexei rose through the ranks of vampire society, becoming a leader and a mentor to others of his kind. He founded his own clan, a group of scholars and mystics who sought to unlock the deepest secrets of the universe. But even as he reveled in his newfound power and influence, Alexei could not escape the gnawing sense of emptiness that consumed him. He had lost his humanity, his very soul, and no amount of knowledge or power could fill the void within him. It was during this time of despair that Alexei first met Lilith, a vampire of extraordinary beauty and cunning. She was a seductress and a manipulator, able to bend others to her will with a mere glance or whispered word. Alexei, blinded by his own desires and desperation, fell under Lilith's sway. He revealed to her the secrets of his own clan, the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of his allies. And in doing so, he betrayed everything he had ever believed in, everything he had ever fought for. The consequences of Alexei's betrayal were swift and devastating. Lilith's clan, armed with the knowledge Alexei had provided, launched a surprise attack on his own people, slaughtering them without mercy. Alexei watched in horror as his friends and allies were cut down before his eyes, their blood staining the ground crimson. He knew that he had been responsible for their deaths, that his own weakness and desire had led to this terrible moment. In the aftermath of the attack, Alexei was cast out by his own kind, branded a traitor and a monster. He was hunted across the world, driven into hiding by those who had once called him friend and leader. But even as he fled, Alexei knew that he could not escape the consequences of his actions. He had unleashed a terrible evil upon the world, a darkness that threatened to consume everything in its path. And so, Alexei made a decision. He would confront Lilith and her clan, would face the monsters he had helped to create. He would fight them with every ounce of his strength and power, would sacrifice everything to undo the damage he had done. The final battle was a thing of legend, a conflict that shook the very foundations of the earth. Alexei and Lilith, once allies and lovers, now faced each other as bitter enemies, their powers matched in a deadly dance of blood and shadow. In the end, it was Alexei who emerged victorious, though the cost was high. Lilith lay dead at his feet, her one beautiful face twisted in a mask of hatred and rage. And all around him, the bodies of the fallen lay strewn across the battlefield, a testament to the terrible price of immortality. In the aftermath of the war, Alexei was a broken man, haunted by the weight of his own sins and the knowledge of all he had lost. He retreated from the world, seeking solace in solitude and contemplation. But even as he tried to find peace, Alexei knew that his work was not yet done. The vampire clans were in disarray, weakened by the war and the betrayals that had led to it. And in that chaos, new threats were emerging, dark powers that sought to fill the void left by Lilith and her followers. Alexei knew that he had a responsibility to confront these dangers, to use his own power and knowledge to protect the world from the darkness that threatened to consume it. And so he set out once again, a lone warrior against the forces of evil. He traveled the world, seeking out the lost and the damned, those who had been touched by the curse of vampirism. He offered them guidance and support, helping them to find their own path in the darkness. And he fought, too, against the monsters and demons that preyed upon the innocent. He became a legend in his own right, a figure of hope and fear, spoken of in whispers by those who knew the truth of the night. But even as he fought, Alexei knew that his own time was running out. The curse of vampirism was a heavy burden, one that weighed upon the soul and the mind. And he had carried that burden for so long, through so many lifetimes of struggle and pain. In the end, it was not a battle that claimed him, but the simple passage of time. Alexei, the first vampire, the father of a race of immortals, passed from the world in silence and solitude, his body crumbling to dust in the light of the rising sun. But his legacy lived on, in the whispered tales of those who knew his story, and in the ongoing struggle between the forces of light and darkness. For Alexei had shown that even the most terrible of curses could be overcome, that even the darkest of souls could find redemption in the end. And so, the tale of Alexei, the first vampire, passed into legend. But his story was not the only one, nor even the most important, for in the centuries that followed, the world of the vampires grew and changed, shaped by the actions of countless individuals, each with their own dreams and desires. There were those who followed in Alexei's footsteps, seeking knowledge and power, striving to unlock the secrets of the universe. And there were those who embraced the darkness, reveling in the thrill of the hunt and the taste of blood upon their lips. There were wars and alliances, betrayals and acts of heroism. There were love stories and tragedies, tales of sacrifice and redemption. And through it all, the curse of vampirism endured, a constant presence in the shadows of the world. But perhaps the most important legacy of Alexei's story was the lesson it taught, the message it carried down through the ages. For in the end, Alexei had shown that even the most terrible of fates could be overcome, that even the darkest of curses could be broken by the power of will and the strength of the human spirit. And so, as the world of the vampires continued to turn, as new stories were written and new legends were born, the memory of Alexei endured, a reminder of the hope and the possibility that lay hidden in even the darkest of nights. For in the end, the story of the first vampire was not a story of monsters and demons, but of the eternal struggle between light and darkness, between hope and despair. And in that struggle, there was always the chance for redemption, always the possibility of a new beginning, no matter how long the night might seem.